Hello and welcome to the Cultural Curriculum Chat podcast, where we explore the stories, identities, and systems shaping how we teach and how we learn. I'm your host, Jebeh Edmunds, and today we're talking about something that seems small but carries enormous cultural weight: grammar. My guest today is Patty McGee, author, educator, and consultant whose mission is to help teachers and students discover their true power through language without shame. Welcome, Patty.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here with you.
Thank you for coming on the show. And let's talk about your journey, Patty. You call yourself the traveling teacher. I love that. What does that mean? And what first pulled you into literacy and language work?
So, if it's okay, I'll start with the second question.
Sure, sure.
When I was a brand new teacher, I taught in the school that I went to, and I was always successful in the area of literacy as I was growing up. My principal at the time was my first grade teacher. She even had a picture of me reading a book on the couch that she had next to a classroom library in the 70s. So that was just very progressive. And because it came so easy to me, reading more so than writing, um, I didn't know how to teach it. I was, the things that you're naturally good at that you can't really recognize your own process to be able to teach it to someone else. And
Yes.
so, to my surprise, I needed to do a lot of learning about literacy teaching. And that set me on a journey to really it's been 31 years that I've been in education. So, it's been something I've been thinking about for 3 decades. And as I became stronger and stronger in my literacy practices, um, the the feeling of wanting to be someone who brought these more simplified but very effective practices to other teachers in other places that wouldn't have met otherwise.
Mm.
So, as a traveling teacher, which I guess that's been about 14 years of working with both grown-ups and kids, um, I preferred to call myself a traveling teacher because I still teach in classrooms. I still demo for the teachers that I'm working with. And I don't think I could get much farther away from the classroom because it's where I discover the answers to the questions that have been in the back of my mind, have been problems of practice for me. And one of those was grammar,
Oh,
because I just didn't get any better as a grammar teacher. Uh, Reading, yes. Writing, yes. Word study, yes. But grammar, I just could not figure out what to do differently because it was so ingrained in me. It was so, oh gosh, worksheets and identification and memorization. And so I tried to do the same thing as what, or the methods that were used when I was young. And it was just an abyss in my teaching.
mhm. I feel that, especially like you said, the worksheets, the rules, and this,
Yeah.
and especially when you have English language learners and then teaching them, and how I love how you even shared like things come naturally to you, but then teaching that practice is a whole different skill. And a lot of, and I feel you because I taught first grade for 5 years. And I remember my first year teaching first grade, it was like, okay, here's your leveled reader. I don't know what level you're in, but you should be able to read it. And you got kids like crying, like, I don't know what I'm. It's like, wait, now you have
Yeah.
to step out of your own way and
Mhm.
translate it in a way for our students to see the concepts and the rules in a way that's engaging. And I love how you put that travel into practice. Like you can never leave that classroom in your
Mhm.
heart, and to share with other adults and children that this is a method that you can click with and it's understandable And you don't have to have any shame around grammar. It is like the redheaded stepchild in literacy. It's like, here
Mhm.
we go. We try to
Yeah.
scoot it along real quick. It's like, no, we need to, be in there. So, especially, like I said, that redheaded stepchild,
Yeah.
and you call it the final frontier. What do you mean by that? Like, why is grammar so often taught through shame?
Yeah. And I have many theories on that.
Mm.
Um, like one is that it was always so punitive. Like the only feedback we got on our writing, or I should say the majority of feedback that we would get on our writing was about grammar errors. And it was correction, correction, correction. And then we were supposed to know how to do better the next time just through the correction. We were also supposed to be able to do these worksheets, and there was some type of, it still exists, but like an undercurrent of belief that the second we complete a worksheet on this particular grammar focus, we can use it immediately in our writing. Like it just doesn't make sense. Every other subject we think of, say, like either units of study or at least related concepts that we are working on and toward together. But grammar wasn't given that. Grammar
Wow.
instruction was just like, I don't understand. Why did, you memorized all the prepositions. How come you're not using them? There was a disconnect there. And that kind of root of shame of like that type of instruction then I think has created generations of people who are uncomfortable teaching grammar because in most cases, and it takes a lot of strength for teachers to admit this because there's shame in not knowing grammar as an adult as well. And so
Mhm.
it's often not taught because there isn't a comfort level on the part of the teacher. And then that's shameful. And then there's
Yes.
always a person or a small percentage of people, teachers or parents that learned in that way, learned grammar with that method. And so they know all the grammar. And when you're somebody who feels like you're supposed to know it, next to somebody who knows it so brilliantly, there sets up another layer of shame. And it just is perpetuated by some of the things that we put on t-shirts and mugs, like grammar police or I'm silently correcting your grammar. It's just in layers and layers and layers of it.
It is, and
Mhm.
and like you said, that shame, like, "How do you not know this?" Or,
Yeah.
"You don't speak so well," and it's just like,
Hmm.
oh, especially as an educator going, it makes me nervous, and I even saw also in my tenure of them losing grammar as part of the standards because, "Well, we don't do that," or, "We can automatically correct grammar with AI now," and da da da, and I'm like, "Well, sometimes AI gets stuff wrong too, and don't you wanna
Hmm.
feel like you can share your thought in a way that makes sense?" But, yeah, you're right with that shame, it's a lot there, and, yeah, that silently, fixing your grammar, it's like, "Oh, I don't
Yeah.
wanna
And
come off as a different, as an unintelligent," you know? Yeah, it's hard.
that is another problem. That is
Yes.
another problem right there. That coming off as unintelligent means that we're not using the grammar of the most powerful in society. The That is a problem right there. I
That
think
part.
of grammar in 3 buckets. Spoken grammar,
Yeah.
which changes from community to community, house to house even, um, and that is just as valuable of grammar usage as the other 2 buckets. And so the second bucket is book grammar. It is the use or intentional misuse of the grammar standards. And then there's standard grammar. And standard grammar are what now is in place as the standards that we're looking to teach our students. But we want to be very clear that just because it's in the standards does not make it superior to any other. bucket of grammar.
I love that, and I love how you have it compartmentalized in different ways because there is no hierarchy that way, and I love how you shared, like, the home grammar language within is just as valuable in honoring those cultures and, the ones in books and misuse, for students to audit, how are they misinterpreting or misusing grammar, and is that the author's style and why?
Mhm.
And then, like, the standards of what students should understand moving forward to the next grade level. Oh my goodness, that's amazing. So, yeah, we're talking about, let's start with the home languages and how rich and expressive and culturally rooted it is. Um, how does grammar become that form? You talked about it of, the highest in society. How does that become a form of cultural policing, you know?
Mm,
Mhm.
yeah, it's just overtly cultural policing. It is saying that the language of the privileged is superior, and that just trickles down into it's insidious. It just creates a belief system of certain people are worthy of more than other people simply because of the way that they can use grammar in a in a way that is aligned to the most powerful in society.
Yeah, for sure. You get all kinds of tropes and,
Mhm,
unintelligent or,
mhm,
ghetto or this isn't real English and
mhm,
you know as well as I do, there's so many societies out there that have variant dialects within the
mhm.
language family that the majority speaks. But for our culture here, it's less than or I'm gonna, perceive you differently
Mhm.
because you're using your vernacular with your cultural group. But, we don't talk about that here in this
Yeah.
setting or this workplace. And so, yeah, I just love how you frame it with the different buckets and how it helps students see themselves in a wider scope and range, kind of like a trilinguistic way versus
Mhm.
one way of how that standard should be. And I just, oh gosh, Patty, we would have been great teammates, my dear. We're like,
Yeah.
okay, help me walk through this grammar. Cause yeah, I hear you, especially growing up in a family where it was multilingual. But it was a very big push on the standard, of what the majority wanted us to do. Because again, out of fear of being called out for being different or othered,
Mhm.
it was like, "Oh, you have to speak proper English," and that was the standard and stuff, so, yeah, that's how code switching came to be, that's it,
That is the
code
word I was just
switching.
thinking. Yes. That.
Yes, code switching,
Yes.
and if you don't know, there is a code switching, lesson on my website to help educators understand that, but that's
Mhm,
why a lot of students code switch
mhm,
because of that shame of being ungrammatical, in their situation. Now, speaking of being ungrammatical or learning how to use grammar in a playful way, can you give us examples of how teachers can be joyful with grammar? It's not a bad word, it's not a bad concept, but how can you can help teachers learn how to be more joyful and playful with the grammatical devices that we know?
Sure. I think there's two roads that we need to walk simultaneously for that. I think the first road is shifting our mindset in
Yes.
terms of what grammar is, uh, and how we teach it. So, like, one mindset shift that we often um, need to make is something around that quick turnover that I was talking about before, that we will do something and then there's immediate transfer. And that's just not a mindset to have, because grammar is nuanced. Grammar is style. I often equate grammar to a painter's paintbrush. It's what we do on the page to create meaning and how we choose to create meaning and revise with grammar in mind. Uh, when we learn standard grammar, which I always say is just the grammar and the standards,
Yeah,
when
yeah.
we learn that, we can also learn how to misuse it intentionally. It's like Picasso was a fine artist before he went all Picasso, you know? So
Mm.
the same thing that we are looking to create meaning on the page in relationship to our reader, to our audience. And so having that mindset shift can be very helpful with the other road that we can walk parallel to this. And that is just shaking up the entry points for grammar instruction. Just think about anything that we study. So, a true study, well, let me say, in school study is usually memorization.
Yep. Hmm.
And a true study outside of school would be one where we get curious, where we hypothesize and make best guesses about those curiosities, that we experiment a little bit. We look for feedback or we ask experts to show us. We then play a little bit with these ideas, approximating and making our best attempts, oftentimes through conversation. And we reflect on what we've done to see what we know and what we still want to learn. And all of those entry points will make for a much more playful and enjoyable grammar experience.
Oh, I love that, Patty. And how you do, you make it fun and also it is nuance, you know. You can't
Mhm.
take it from the worksheet and then put it into practice in the next thing because there could be different prompts, there could be different other exercises. So I just love that metaphor of just is our own paintbrush and how, it's subjective and it's how we can, play around with it and still not fear it,
Yes.
about getting it wrong. Oh, I love this. Tell us more about your book too
Okay.
and your work and your resources because I know our
Yes.
teachers are listening like we need more Patty. So yes, what can
Aw,
we do?
thank you.
Yes, yeah.
So, uh, first of all, I'd like to share the best endorsement that I have received on my work around grammar. I was in a seventh grade classroom in Virginia, and I was explaining to the students that I was going to teach them grammar, but using a different method. And I demoed for the teachers basically what would be 4 days worth of grammar experiences. And as I was leaving, one of the seventh grade boys stood up and said, "That's so much better than the old way." So that
Love
is
that.
my
Yes.
favorite endorsement of all for
Yes.
this work.
Oh, I love that.
Um, I know, me too. Um, so basically, what my book does is it creates a pattern and gives resources to kind of fill in that pattern. So I like to suggest that we teach grammar for 10 minutes, 3 to 5 times a week. And in fact, I'd rather change the word teach to we create grammar experiences for students 3 to 5 times a week, and that we do so in a way that unfolds intentionally. Like we might start off with um, pairs of students talking, so grammar out loud, about
Yes.
say the difference between simple and compound sentences. And I've already given them some simple and some compound sentences. And in partners, or trios, they look at the two categories and they make their best guess about what it is. And then the next grammar experience might be explicitly teaching how to take two simple sentences and create a compound sentence using technically worded coordinating conjunctions, but their nicknames are fanboys. For and nor, but, or, yet, so.
Yes.
And I'll demo that. I'll ask kids to orally try the same thing with two simple sentences that I'll provide. And then that's it for that day. And then the next, this is my favorite. We use grammar manipulatives to play with the grammar concept. So I might have sentence strips with simple sentences on them, and then a collection of the fanboys, and the reminder that there's a comma that goes before the fanboys, which, by the way, I think is not going to be a rule for very much longer. Um, yeah. And they just create as many compound sentences as they can during that 10-minute period. And if we want to try it again, to have more practice, we just do it again in another 10-minute pocket. And then after we hypothesize, we have explicit teaching, we have experimenting and playing. That's when I like to build in a 10-minute reflection. What do we know that we didn't know before? And what do we still wonder about? And setting up for wonderings around grammar just changes the game completely. It's like, I remember being blown away the first time where I was teaching about complex sentences. And no, I was teaching about prepositions. The kids had already learned about complex sentences. And one question was, do prepositions make complex sentences? And I was like,
Mhm.
ooh, that is such a good grammatically clever question. And so we did a little exploration. Let's check out some sentences and look at where the prepositions show up, and are they still simple sentences? Could they be? And that exploration helped students hold on to that learning because it came from wondering. And then it
Mhm.
followed with, let's try and find out. And
Mhm.
it would have been a very easy thing for me to say, no, prepositions don't make sentences into complex sentences. But who would have remembered that? Very few.
Very few. And
Mhm,
again, putting into practice and in just like really dissecting and figuring
mhm,
out on your own that locks in a lot more, easier than going from that. Oh my
mhm,
gosh, that's amazing. So where can our listeners and viewers find you, Patty?
mhm. So I have a website. It's pattymcgee.org. And I would just advise you to use Patty with a Y, because Patty with an I will get you to a very skilled, famous skateboarder from the 60s.
Wow.
Yes.
I didn't know
Um,
that.
yeah.
Yeah.
So pattymcgee.org. And right now on my website, I have a curated collection of podcasts, articles, uh, and other resources. There are downloadables. There's just so many things on there that speak to the concepts that we're talking about today.
That. Thank you. And we will have that in the show notes, Patty McGee with a Y
Yeah.
.org. So I'll put that in there. Oh, Patty, you are just a breath of fresh air. Thank you for joining us today and, taking the shame out of grammar, and I love how you call it a grammatical experience. And teachers can do little 10 minutes right
Mhm,
within their literacy block to really put that into practice, so it's more of building that grammatical muscle instead
mhm.
of it being just a quick worksheet just to get to your next transition. So thank you for helping us change that mindset that it's nothing to fear, it's something to honor. And our students need to see that example. So thank you again. And listeners, viewers, share this episode with another fun teacher friend or even a colleague that you might feel needs a little pick me up and understanding of how grammar works and how to teach it well. And I will see you here. Yes, Not Your Granny's Grammar. I love that book. I love the title. And
Thank you.
can't wait to share your links for that as well. So a lot of our teachers can hopefully have you travel to their schools
I would
to,
love it.
oh, yes, to show them their grammatical practice. And I will see you all here same time next week. Bye bye.